Ruler School is brought to you by Happy Little Hug Factory and these amazing patrons. Extra special thank you to guest lecturer patrons Brody Harris and Lance Albertson. Thank you for your support. Enjoy the video. Hey there guys, DMO73 here, bringing you another feature match for the week. Today I am playing a white, green, red Ciel Auras list, and I am playing against Paul, who is playing a Gill Elementals list, making use of the same kind of package in terms of the leafs that came out in Winds of the Ominous Moon. I'm going to be on the play here. Paul's just finishing up a quick shuffle. So the whole idea to kind of talk about Gill as opposed to how he uses it as opposed to how Glorious was using it a few weeks ago. Glorious is very much more of a mid-range kind of aggressor kind of deck, whereas Gill is definitely very much more of a control kind of style. You use the elementals not only to pitch for their inheritance effects, not really going to be playing them on field, but use them to kind of fuel Gill, as well as the Gill Lapis, who is kind of the 4-drop uncancelable, which kind of does a lot of work. Ciel, on the other hand, is very much a J-Ruler-centric kind of deck. You're trying to play these auras to kind of keep the early game safe, flipping and just kind of generating this massive amount of value off of the Ciel flip, potentially more than one time, and having things like Grimia, who can get you a lot of life gain, and things like that. I'm also playing in the list some Lorite's 7 Disciples, just because it's a cheaper card in the color that can provide some aggression to be able to potentially close out game or provide early pressure. So going into my turn one, that's a Gusting Skies. I'm going to cast Whirling Winds, which is the draw a card or remove a creature from combat, an attacking thing. So that's just so turn one, so I can draw a card, cycle it, and get an aura onto Ciel turn one. Ideally, you want to get at least 3 auras before you flip, so you have that imperishable, but it is just some things to note. Paul hits a first turn Gusting Darkness, decides not to play anything in that turn, and then mills a Gill Lapis, which is great for me, because one less Gill Lapis to have to worry about is fine with me. Got another Whirling Winds after hitting another Gusting Skies, draw a card to cycle. At the end of the turn, I'm going to go ahead and attach the Whirling Wind and say pass. He's going to try to draw a card here by casting the Elemental, and I say, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and say Fairy Spell. Let's cancel that, simply because of the fact that he's using... I just don't want him to draw cards. I want it to be slower for him. Ideally, that maybe not have been the best play, right? The Fairy Spell probably could have been used for something better, like a Cancel War or a Lorite, but my thought was just like, hey, maybe this baits out a Severing Winds, and then I use a cancel on that too, and I can win the wars there later, otherwise I stop him from drawing. Hit a Nature's Beauty and then just passes the turn, milling a Paladin off of it. Going to my turn, I hit a Blasting Waves. I'm going to go ahead and cast another Whirling Winds, getting to draw another card, kind of building this hand to make sure that the Ciel flip goes kind of unchallenged. You see I have things like the Aura cancel spells, couple Severing Winds. Before the upkeep, he's going to cast another Elemental. He's going to... we might as well use that rather than banishing, right? Because he's got the stones to be able to do it. He also plays a lot of cancel spells, obviously being Gill, and the advantage he has is later the game goes, the more he can just search for his cancels, which can be a little bit problematic for myself. But again, he just passes the turn and hits a White Leaf off the top for the mill. So I did do a little bit of an unsafe play here. Ideally, I probably should have called for one more stone, but I'm going to float double green and then pay 1 to perform Judgment. With no Lorite in hand, this is actually a pretty foolish move on my part, if I'm being honest. I completely have no way to stop a Lorite play. I have a lot of Severing Winds, which is fine. But like I should have called for stone one more turn, potentially played and just kind of waited so that I could play flip into having the cancel spell to back it up, because a single Lorite stops all of Ciel's effects, and that's pretty the weakness of Ciel, is that all of those options that you could choose from, ultimately it's just one effect, so it doesn't really help. And the problem is, because I tapped those stones before I did it to float the will, now I just have nothing on his turn because all that floating will vanishes. So on his turn, he's going to play the Leaf Paladin. He gets to enter the play, and he gets to grab 4 elementals and put them all into his hand. He gets to grab a black leaf, a blue leaf, a white leaf, and a red leaf. and just suddenly fuel his hand with all these elementals. Naturally, even if he has a very full hand of cards, he might pitch some of these things like the blue leaf or the white leaf to pitch the blue leaf for the discard just because they're not really playing creatures at this point, and pitch the white leaf for life gain. And so then he's got a bunch of elementals in his grave, and he can save black leaf and red leaf for protection, for kind of that instant speed cheap removal later on. Paul has a hand of 10 cards at this point. Having cast one card already and not really being able to back it up with too many things other than a Severing Winds, it makes perfect sense that he's not just going to like hard cast the burn spell or the fifth element, but when he goes to swing with the Lorite and says I'm going to hit you for the damage, then I'll go ahead and say, yeah, I'll do the fifth element. So he played this a little bit weirdly by pitching the light elemental first, or the white leaf first. He could have kept it and then pitched it afterwards because I knew he has them. So then this fifth element is 12 damage. I'm going to attempt to cast Severing Winds. It's technically his second card of the turn. He's going to use his elemental, his Energize to cast Ferris spell. I have another Severing Winds to back it up. He has another Severing Winds to back that up. So that 9 damage is going to go through and then trade into Lorite. Ultimately, I'm not terribly concerned because Lorite, or because Ciel had the Imperishable. So Paul's just going to tap for stone, he mills at the end of turn, and then goes to me. So I still have to start equipping auras again, though, which is a little bit tedious. It can definitely be a problem. But my thought process is I'd rather kind of get started with that kind of thing than try to and continue to call for stone. And also having wasted quite a few of Paul's cancel spells in this kind of early game cancel war when I can still flip CL later and generate all this value. Lorite 7 Disciples is a very strong card. The longer it stays on the field, especially if there's a Lorite, the more deadly it becomes. Because eventually you can get it to be a 9/9 with swiftness, flying, drain, barrier, precision, first strike, and lots of other stuff. But even by itself, it's just like every turn 7/7 flyer, which is very hard to deal with. Or I can just say if his board is clear, just give it barrier and then try to swing in, which protects me from things like miscalculation, so I can get that damage. See, Paul does have that final battle in hand, which is pretty nice considering he's got the white leaves to be able to gain life. So it means that spending for a final battle is not as relevant in terms of being as big of a cost. Final battling for just a 7 Disciples, though, isn't really worth it. He probably wants to wait a little bit longer to see what else he can see. So he's actually going to go ahead and perform Judgment. He leaves open the Darkness Will, potentially. This is pretty good for him. Ultimately, what he kind of missed an opportunity here for is Gill's front side and backside removal abilities can both be activated on the same turn, in the sense that like you can activate in response to him trying to flip, banish, produce a green, flip, banish another card, produce another double green, and then just immediately recycle those two things in search. It's for that reason that a lot of Gill decks will tech a 1-of Spiritual Awakening. It's a 3-drop card that you draw 2 cards and then gain 100 life for every card in your hand. I don't think there's a reason to not at least play that, because then it's free card draw, and on the turn you flip, you kind of put this 11 into play, and for free, draw 2 cards and gain a bunch of life. He didn't do that though. On my turn, the 7 Disciples gained flying, and I tapped with the aura. I tapped down his paladin to go ahead and just say we're gonna go ahead and kill it. And then because he doesn't have the white, he didn't have access to the miscalculation. Play a second Lorite 7 Disciples to kind of back it up. So now it's kind of 2-to-1, right? So if he spends his time trying to kill the 1 elemental or 1 7 Disciples, then I have the other one to kind of back it up. He's going to pitch to gain another 6 life, go up to 52. And and then decides to pass, which I think was an interesting decision here. If I was Paul, I would have at least called for stone, especially since he's representing, since he has the miscalculations in hand, right? He also could have paid the life to, since he hadn't cast a card that turn and I was tapped out, or only had 2 well available, paid for the final battle, killed them both, called for stone, and kind of kept his momentum going. Ultimately, though, he chose to just pass the turn. Going into my turn, I'm going to give both of these guys flying, call for stone, try to play Whirling Winds to draw a card and get another aura into grave. You see I have a low right there, which is pretty nice. Try to swing in for 7. He plays Miscalculation. I say that's fine, you can kill the first one. And then I'm just going to pass the turn and go ahead and try to equip. Well, attach. It's not really equipping. Paul's going to go ahead and produce a couple green using Gill's effect. Don't know if he's going to use it. It might just be to just kind of put stuff, RFG stuff. He's attempting to try to search. He puts the 2 cards in as cost for the search. Which this is like the one moment you can kind of interact with Gill, is like low writing the search. I'm not terribly concerned because I have a handful of cancel spells. So I'm kind of wanting to see kind of what he might grab. Does grab a Severing, which is a little unfortunate. But it's definitely not something that I can't possibly deal with a Severing of my own, or, you know, this matchup, weirdly enough, comes down a lot to these cancel wars, because we both have these kind of beefy Jade Rulers that kind of in their flip give us a lot of advantage. He taps out here to play the Gilt Lapis, which I think was an interesting play since I had so much will available. It can't be canceled, right? But the aura pseudo cancel doesn't actually cancel it. It just removes the card from the chase. So it's the only way to get around Gill Lapis in a Gill deck. And I was definitely representing it, so I'm not entirely sure if that was the right play. The other thing that I would definitely do here if I was Paul is call for stone. He's tapped out, so like calling for stone, there's no real way, unless I'm running a pump spell, to be able to kill him with just Lorite 7 Disciples. And even if he is up like that, I can just give 7 Disciples flying, which doesn't really help him at all. Like Gill Lapis doesn't really serve as a blocker if I can just give the creature flying. Going into my turn, before the upkeep, I'm going to go ahead and cast a Whirling Winds to try to draw a card. Might as well get that aura in the grave while I can. Draw to a Ferris spell, which is pretty nice. Call for stone, because again, I don't really have a reason not to. Hit a Magic Stone of Reincarnation. It's supposed to be a Summer's Breeze. Unfortunately, I didn't have Summer's Breeze on me to build this deck, so I'm just going to go ahead and pay the 300 life, but it can very easily be a Summer's Breeze. Have the flying, so I go ahead and swing in for 7. Like I said, the Gill really didn't have a reason to not just go ahead and tap and call for stone. At this point in time, I'm just very, very far ahead in terms of resources. Now, Gill can keep up because of the fact that he can banish for green for spirit magics, but at the same time, having the extra stones is also very good, because there are certain cards in his deck, like Lorite or Fairer Spell, that aren't spirit magics, so he needs to be able to kind of play those. Looking at my hand here, or my graveyard, to kind of see where all the auras are. Deciding if he wants to pitch stuff at the end of his turn, or if he wants to try to deal with the 7 Disciples. The problem is, from his hand, I think he can only deal -6, like 6 total, with the black leaf and the red leaf. He'd have to like summon one and then banish it, and he's already kind of a little will starved at this point. He's just going to discard at the end of turn. Going into my turn, I think about flashing an Alorite at the end of his turn, but I'm like, I'm going to save it. But then I top deck Alorite, so in the recovery, before the 7 Disciples effect is going to trigger, I say, you know what, let's go ahead and cast one of these Lorites, so I can try to make my 7 Disciples a 9/9 with Flying, Drain, Barrier, Precision, all of these other things, especially now that Paul is kind of presenting all of this kind of major will. So in response to the Lorite, he goes to search his deck. This is a very interesting play line. So I'm kind of prepped here to have a cancel war with him at this point, is my thought. Like, I've got the cancel spell, I've got a Ferrer spell, I think I have Severing Winds too, and a lot of open will, and it's even in the recovery. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, he's going to go search for a cancel or his own Lorite, and we're going to get into this cancel war. He searches for Reincarnation of the Soul, which seems really interesting considering the fact that he doesn't have a lot of stuff RFG'd. Now, he would be able to recycle his Skill Lapis at this point. Maybe he was just trying to take advantage of the search before Lorite came in, but that doesn't really make sense because Lorite wasn't really going to cancel anything. I was just flashing in the Lorite so that I could get all of the effects off of 7 Disciples. Paul's looking at his hand, and this is kind of where the cancel war might potentially go into, which is a little bit unfortunate that he's already used his search, because now he doesn't get the advantage of being able to search out kind of the winner of the cancel wars. That's definitely the advantage that Paul's deck has over mine, is I have to only rely on the cancel stuff that I draw, whereas Paul can just kind of continuously build his hand to win these cancel wars. He goes ahead and lets the trigger resolve. I'm going to go ahead and swing in the air for 9 with Drain, so that's kind of life total swap. I go up to 46, he goes down to 36, and then I'm just going to go ahead and I think I call Stone here, because I can get potentially one more aura, and I already cast a card this turn, so then I can have 4 effects when I untap, which is pretty awesome. Thinking about playing the Gribia, and I go, you know what, I don't think it's quite time for me to do that yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and try to attach to the Seal. So now I have 4 auras at this point. So I can get a lot of value off of a CL flip. Going into Paul's turn, I'm representing a lot of will. The weird thing about the CL deck is that it gets very, I don't want to say it struggles to play cards, but it really honestly doesn't play a lot of cards. It really just kind of backs up with these auras to make your opponent's plays less impactful, and then CL flips, which I think is one of the weaknesses of CL, is that it sometimes gets to this point where it almost has too much will in his hands and doesn't really know what to do with it. Now, obviously you can build around that, but in this kind of basic concept for CL, we didn't do that. Paul's going to go ahead and do the final battle. He pays 14 to go ahead and kill the everything on the board, which I think is probably fine, but he's also done me a pretty big favor in the fact that I just gained a bunch of life, and he just spent a bunch of life. So essentially, at this point, the life, I got to deal 2,300 damage to him, really 3,000 damage to him, with just 1 7 Disciples, which is pretty solid. At the end of the turn, he's going to pitch the red leaf, nothing really to target with it, and then we go into my turn. I'm going to go ahead and call Stone one more time, mainly because I don't quite feel comfortable enough flipping yet, and I'm really not concerned about my life total yet. I want like maybe 1 or 2 more cancels to be able to really win that war. So I'm going to go ahead and play Grimia for 5 here. It comes in as a 12/12. Just that, and then I can banish auras to make it kind of better. I make a little bit of a misplay here, and I'll kind of explain that here in a second. The cool thing about Grimia is you can banish an aura from your graveyard at instant speed, take a flying, barrier, and drain. So these big swings. And if your life points are low, then you can play it for super cheap, which is pretty helpful. Currently, I don't have any auras in grave, but Grimia combos really nicely with this aura that I'm about to play. Second card for the turn. The Scarlet's Testimony, which gives it swiftness and is an aura. So here's where I mess up. And this is just my reactive brain thinking. I'm going to go ahead and try to move into combat. Swing in for 12, and he says, you know what, I'm going to miscalc it. I'll respond by banishing. He does the Lorite, and I say, well, I guess I'm going to try to play the war here a little bit then. I play a Lorite to cancel his Lorite's effect. He's going to Severing Winds me. I'm going to respond with a Fairer Spell on the Severing Winds. He's going to respond with a Fairer Spell, and I say, you know what, yep, that wins. So then the miscalculation is going to kill my Grimia. That whole situation could have been avoided. Don't worry, you see me pick up that one and start to shuffle it in with my graveyard. I definitely catch that it's RFG'd, so I don't try to attach it to CL. Like, wait a minute, that doesn't need to be there. That's RFG by Grimia. So what I could have done here differently, which would have been much better and kept me safer and would have helped me project what he was trying to do, or tell what he was trying to do, is before I even move into combat, I banish to give those effects. So then, if he doesn't want to take that 12 damage and give me the 12 life, he has to immediately use the Lorite, and so I just spend the card, and then at that point, if he's that protective about trying to keep the barrier and stuff off of it, I know he probably has a card in his hand, so I can just sit and wait, and I don't lose the Grimia, and the Grimia sits there for next turn. So I'm explaining to Paul here what the CL effects are. For those of you who aren't aware, when CL flips based on the number of auras, you can pick any number of her abilities. I think she has like 6 or 7. I'll go through them here in a second. You can only pick each ability once, and then you kind of resolve them all. The effects are to gain 1,000 life, draw 2 cards, produce 2 spirit, wind, 4/4 flying tokens, untap 3 stones, or burn a J-Res for 800 damage. So yeah, I think she has 6 effects total. And then she's a 10/10. So at maximum, you get 6 auras on her, and you get every single effect. So Paul on his turn does something a little bit weird here. He just passes. He doesn't even call stone, which I think is a really strange decision to not at least call stone when he has Lorite to serve as a blocker, potentially. I'm going to go ahead and do the flip. Calling modes to untap 3 stones, draw 2 cards, gain 1,000 life, and produce 2 wind tokens. And he actually just lets it all happen, which is really nice. So I get to gain some life here. Go up to 45. I'm going to use the Floating Will along with the 3 from the untapped to be able to play a Grimia. So for really 3 will total, I got a 10/10, 2 cards, 1,000 life, 2 flying 4/4s, and a 12/12. That can have flying, barrier, and drain. Now, I don't have any auras in grave at this point, right? But the beauty is all my quick cast auras, like my cancels or that Scarlet's Testament that I just drew, I could cast them, kind of forcing Paul to kind of try to play around them. And then even after he plays around them, if he cancels them for some reason or whatever, then they're in grave, and then I can banish them for Grimia. So at this point, every aura in my hand is now doing double duty. It's trying to do the action that I'm trying to get it to do by itself, and it also serves to protect Grimia if they try to make it, if Paul tries to stop me from using its effect. Because even if a card gets canceled, it's going to go to the graveyard, at which point Grimia can just say, oh, well, I'm just going to banish it then. So he's going to pitch the white leaf here, gain the life, gain 600 life. Go up to 2,800. He's going to go ahead and try to pay 24 life, go down to 4, and final battle the board for 24. I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what, we're going to use the wind cancel spell aura. try to remove it from the chase. Paul's going to banish to produce double green. Cycle back into his deck to go and search for a spell. Paul's got 3 cards in his hand at this point. He's going to search for a Severing Winds. Spend 1. He's got 2 floating green at this point. Now Fairer Spell, his Fairer Spell. Remember, he's used his search at this point. Paul's going to use the 2 floating green and then the 2 remaining will that he has to cast Lorite's Deletion Magic. So I would have to pay 3 will or my effect gets canceled. Thankfully, though, I have a Severing Winds in hand. So I'm just going to win that cancel war because he's tapped out. So unless Paul has a Severing Winds, it's not going to happen. And at that point, I was pretty sure he was out of Severing Winds. So I win that war, then Paul just scoops the game, knowing that he just can't possibly deal with the fact that I'm going to have a 4/4 flyer and he's only at 4 life. So we go to game 2. I am going to be on the draw. Huge thanks to the Malaysia crew for my awesome custom Fox Ambassador Energized card. It's real humbling to be able to receive it and make use of it. So huge thanks to those guys. If you haven't already, go like them on Facebook. They make amazing stuff. It's just Force of Will Malaysia. They make amazing stuff for their community. Paul on his turn is going to go ahead and trying to kind of tell where he spent the will for, but he casts the Gentle Breeze Elemental to draw a card. I'm going to go ahead and play Whistling Winds on my turn. And then attach it and then pass the turn. I think maybe he just forgot to call for tap for stone, but maybe he didn't. I think he's realizing it there. He's using the elemental, banishing the elemental to draw a card, and then going to his turn and recovering. So getting to do a little bit of digging here. Hits a Black Silence off the top. Getting solid dual stones rather than countdown stones for him is much better. He's going to gain 6 life by pitching the Leaf Elemental. Gets another elemental into his graveyard. Mills at the end of the turn, hits another Leaf Paladin, which is great for me to see, just less value. Hit the Prisia's Reincarnation, Reincarnation Memoria, so I'm going to go ahead and pay the 3 life. Once again, should be a Summer's Breeze, but I just didn't have one that day. I'm going to cast Mother's Love, which is the other kind of draw a card cycling aura, so I get to draw a card and then attach. The other mode for that aura is to stop the next 800 damage that would be dealt to me for the turn. Neither of these decks is really dealing a lot of early game damage, so I'd rather just draw a card and equip the aura. Gusting Darkness Magic Stone from Paul. And then just passes the turn, milling a Gill Lapis. Every time I see one of those go to the grave from the mill effect, I feel very good about it. Going into my turn. Call for stone, hit my Nature's Beauty Stone. Going to spend my Energize and 2 will to play a Lorite's 7 Disciples. I want to leave up the green-white stone to be able to make use of it. I'm like, well, this Energize is just for green, so I kind of might as well use it at this point. Paul is thinking about what he wants to do. He's going to banish to produce a green, and then spend 2 and cast Vanish. Deletion Magic, which would force me to then have to pay 2 will. Don't have 2 will to pay, so it's essentially a Vanish. I'm going to go ahead and try to Fairer Spell it. It's going to Fairer Spell me back, and I say, yep, that's fine. If I was in Paul's shoes at that point, I would consider the idea of using the Severing Winds just because it's free. But I also totally understand the quandary of wanting to save the Severing Winds for potential later cancel wars, when he might be tapped out will-wise, especially since he's a deck that seems to be wanting to kind of flip a little early. So he produces 1 here. And then he's going to go ahead and... I think he's moving to Perform Judgment. Wasn't able to cast an aura on that turn, unfortunately, so I'm still at 2 auras, which means I'm at least 2 turns away from a flip. And he's going to do the flip here. So he's got a floating green. He's going to produce another one to then go get 2 more green. And so now he did what I kind of talked about before, right? You kind of produce this high amount of will from Gill on the turn you flip him, and then you can immediately search for something. The problem is that it's only green that he can search for it. He can only cast it for spirit magics, and it seems like in Paul's deck, the spirit magics that he has are draw power. So ultimately, he's not really going to be able to do much with that 3-will, and it might have just been easier to just go ahead and banish the 1 rather than banishing 2. Because now he has to spend more turns trying to build it up. Ultimately, he can search for any spell he wants, right? So he doesn't necessarily have to search for a spirit magic. But if he wants to make use of that will this turn, it has to be spirit magic. He's going to go ahead and search. I think he's about searching for Lorite's deletion magic, which is fine. It's a spirit magic cancel spell that isn't Vanish. Can potentially do more work for Vanish based on how it goes, especially in the early game. And because it's kind of so free, he can kind of force me to just be like, well, I can't really cancel it. Vanish might just be a hard, better option, though. I think the idea for deletion magic was to make it so that it's a hard cancel early on for cards like Maribel or other bigger cards that cost more will but aren't necessarily quick cast, or you don't necessarily get access to 3 will fast enough, because technically you can cast deletion magic on turn 1.5 if you already have an elemental in the grave, which can be pretty effective in being able to just like Wall of Wind whatever is going to be able to play. And when this format with no Wall of Wind, that can be kind of effective. At the end of his turn, he's going to attempt to shuffle in, and I'm going to say no. I'm going to Lorite it. He does get to shuffle those 2 cards in, but he doesn't get to search for it. At the end of his turn, I'm also going to go ahead and, or in my turn, I'm going to go ahead and cast the Scarlet's Vision, or whatever it's called, to be able to give Lorite Swiftness so that I can then have a third aura attached. I'm going to his turn once again. Here's the kind of the weirdness of flipping Gill too early, right? And here's a very interesting decision. He needs an elemental in his grave, so he's actually going to go ahead and try to pitch a blue to try to bounce my Lorite back to my hand, which I'm not sure is the right decision. But in response, I'm going to go ahead and Aura of Hope my own Lorite, so it's going to get tapped. I'm going to take this damage. I totally don't mind, but I get Lorite back. So I kind of plus off of this, and being able to tap down my own Lorite means that this next turn I get an elemental in grave. Feeling pretty confident about being able to do a judgment this turn. Floating the will, trying to flip over Feasting. Trying to get the modes to untap. He flashes in Lorite. I have floating will. We know for a fact that I have a fairer spell. He casts a Lorite of his own. I'm going to fairer spell the second Lorite with the other flirting will, so I'm trying to cancel both of those Lorites. Plays a Severing Winds. I play Severing Winds. He banishes to play a deletion magic. I'm going to go ahead and Severing Winds the deletion magic. Or in response to the deletion magic, I'll go ahead and pay the 1 will. And so it's all going to go away, and I get to recover stuff. Now, we catch something here, which is honestly the situation, and we want to make sure that we're kind of showing the ideal situation here. This is what I was talking about, where we're going to rebuild the chase here real quick. I pay for the will here, but none of the other cards have resolved yet. This is one of the things that Gill can do so well, right, is how he wins Cancel Wars. He has 2 elementals, and I'm completely tapped out. So he can shuffle in those elementals and search for the cancel spell that he needs, a Severing Winds particularly, to then win this Cancel War, forcing me to have a Severing Winds. And if I don't, he wins, gets to stick a Lorite, and then gets to stick one of the 2 Lorites and then cancel my Ciel effect. So not only does it completely tap me out, it burns me out of a lot of resources. He gets to stick a Lorite, and all I have is a 10/10. So those two, we're kind of walking through everything. So that Fairy spell is canceling that Lowrite. That's kind of its own independent thing. Nothing's really happening there. He casts a second Lowrite. I try to Fairy spell that Lowrite. He tries to Severing Winds the Fairy spell. I try to Severing Winds to Severing Winds. He deletion magics, so I pay 1 will to pay for the deletion magic. That gets gone, and then he goes and searches for another Severing Winds to then deal with my Severing Winds. And then that Cancel War kind of all resolves, and he gets to get the Lowrite to stick, and then cancel my Ciel effect. Now, the good thing is I do have a couple of auras in grave at this point, so even if Ciel is going to die, I get to kind of come back, or don't have to spend as much time trying to rebuild my presence. The problem is that I'm completely tapped out, and I'm giving Paul quite a big opening. He's going to go ahead and banish, discard a white leaf to gain 6 life, go to 52. Then he plays Final Battle to pay 10. Or pays 20, goes down to 32, kills my Ciel outright, swings in for 10, takes me down to 15. And then says, you know what, I'm going to hit you for 1 with a Lowrite. Or he's thinking about it anyway, and then makes a decision to go through. Going to my turn, I'm going to go ahead and call for Stone. Paying 5, completely tapping out to play a Grimia. So this is technically incorrect. My life is less than 2,000, so I should only pay 3. But he's got a cancel spell to be able to answer it. So I'm just like, yeah, I can't win the cancel ward anyway. So I'm just going to say we're done, and we move into the next game. So I'm back on the play. Hopefully this game goes a little bit more in my favor, and I can actually get a Ciel flip early to stick. Because if I can get one early to flip, like if I can successfully flip Ciel twice in this mirror or in this matchup, it's pretty advantageous to me. So it's going to be about getting those early game auras, making sure that my first flip is protected, and then kind of going from there. So turn 1 Whirling Winds into an aura attach, going to Paul, hits a Black Silence. Mills at the end of his turn, hits a deletion magic. Every cancel spell I see gone is also great for me. Blasting Waves, Mother's Love, gets to draw a card and get an aura attached. And on the turn, he's going to cast that Elemental. Gets to draw a card. So we're both just kind of spending this early game setting up our graveyards, or in my situation, setting up Ciel, to see kind of who can get that kind of first judgment of advantage off faster. Shout out to Kaijudo and the Nature Civ beanie on Paul's side. Even though Light Civ is the best Civ. Sorry for the Kaijudo reference. Yeah, if I can get an early game flip that's protected and resolved, and then follow that up with a potential later game flip, the advantage generated off of that is usually too much for Gill to handle, even if it's with this searching effect. Another Mother's Love, draw a card, essentially puts me, now I'm officially at 3 auras, so I can potentially flip next turn if I can keep it protected. Calls for Stone, hits a Gusting Darkness Stone. At that point, this time trying to decide what he wants to do with his hand. So the reason why Reincarnation of the Soul is kind of played in this deck is because it helps you recycle the cards that have been removed not by Gill, like by Gill Lapis. You can also recycle Spirit Magics that you RFG with Lowrite to bring Lowrite back to your hand. It's going to burn his Energize and attempt to play this Leaf Paladin. And I go, I'm wondering if this is a card that I want to care about letting resolve. And I'm actually fine with it. The Leafs didn't really do much for him in the past 2 games, other than just kind of filling his hand and getting stuff to his graveyard. So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, that's okay. He's going to have to discard a bunch of cards anyway. I don't really have anything for him to bounce or burn or stat neg. So really, he's just going to gain life and then have to pitch them somehow for like end of turn anyway. So I'll let him fill his hand with kind of this fluff and help kind of thin his deck a little bit. Asking if he has anything else. Then I have to discard at the end of the turn. Pitches to gain the life. Goes up to 46. And then discards. I think he just discarded the other 3 elementals because the rest of his hand was kind of so good. So like I said, the Leaf Paladin doesn't really do much against my deck, simply because he just doesn't have stuff to do. And then he mills a final battle, which is excellent for me, because it just means that my Seal's better protected. Handful of cancels, float double green, let's go for a flip. Seal's attempting to flip, seeing if he might have anything to answer it. Flashes in a Lowrite. I have used my floating to cast a Ferris spell. Wondering if the war is going to go a little bit longer. Unfortunately, with just a Ferris spell in his hand and no will to cast it, that Ferris spell that I cast is the first turn I have, so this is, like I said, a protected Lowrite. Even if I needed to, I have quite a few cancel spells in my hand to kind of back up, and the Gill isn't flipped, which makes cancel wars much easier for me to win. I still have 2 floating will. I get these 2 tokens, I draw 2 cards, and I draw into 2 of the 3-drop cancel spell, which is really, really good for me. Because now I can protect the CL now that it's flipped. And probably win that cancel war, and then start calling for stone with it, and doing some interesting plays that way. I'm going to go ahead and use the white floating that I have here, because I usually try to float a green and a white. Reason why is just in case I draw into a Grimia, so I can like snap cast a Grimia. But instead, I just use the white to kind of tap down his Leaf Paladin, get an aura in the grave, and at the end of the turn I have to discard anyway, so I'm just going to discard another aura. And the reason why this is so great is because now I have 2 auras in grave before even CL dies. So it puts the clock for being able to flip CL again on a much, much shorter timetable, and I don't have to spend nearly as much time trying to deal with it. He says, I'm going to go ahead and flip Gill. I need to get starting to win these cancel wars, potentially. I need to be able to start drawing the cards that I need and finding those spells to be able to deal with your board state. Definitely a smart move. Ultimately, though, it gives me a turn because Gill isn't really going to do anything at this point, and as previously established, kind of up to this point, the Gill deck is running that spiritual guidance, so he doesn't get to refill his hand that way. We've already said that the elementals themselves don't really do much, although with the tokens, he can bounce the tokens or burn the tokens with red leaf or blue leaf. Keep in mind that 5th element is indeed a spirit magic, so that's a removal spell that he can kind of cast at instant speed. During the upkeep, I'm going to go ahead and cast the Whirling Winds and another Whirling Winds that I drew off the top. So at this point, I have 4 auras in grave. So this means that 4 turns later, after he kills my CL, it's going to flip again. With Imperishable, at least, if not waiting a couple more turns. I'm going to go ahead and swing in the air a couple of times, hit him for 8 damage, try to make those final battles a little bit more costly for him, and then I'm going to go ahead and call Stone. Now, the reason for this is CL can't possibly win against Gill, right? It's bigger. If he wants to waste his turn trying to attack the CL rather than calling for Stone, that's an advantage for me. And then if CL dies, I can flip it again later and get that value back. So in my mind, it's safer and actually more advantageous for me to go ahead and start producing will with the CL, kind of saying, hey, you know, you're going to kill it if you want. Otherwise, you know, if you want to call Stone, it's not going to do anything. And I can kind of keep pressuring you with this 10-10. Otherwise, you have to immediately answer it. And even if you do, I get a lot of more value off of it. So that's kind of one of the ways that CL can put pressure on slower decks like this. See, like I said, he's not going to call for stone, so he's locked at 3 will, and I'm already at 4 stones. Banish those elementals, or those, banish those auras that are attached to it, but now starting on my turn, I can start reattaching those auras. And now I will be 2 stones up on Paul, because I'll be able to call for stone this next turn anyway. And then he's going to use Paladin to kill one of the tokens. I really don't care about the tokens. They just are kind of there to serve as some early game damage and make final battles less impressive. Going into my turn. See, I have a handful of cancels. I think you see I have 3 Severing Winds and 2 of the 3-drop cancel aura. Swinging for 4, take it down to 34. Attempt to take him down to 34. He says, that's fine, I'm going to take that damage. I have a Lorite and some 7 Disciples in hand. I think about whether or not I want to use those, but in my mind, I'm like, it's better for me to stick a 7 Disciples after I've stuck a Lorite than the other way around. So I'll just go ahead and attach my first aura, starting that countdown clock. This is a situation where I think Paul should call for stone. I don't think pushing for damage is really super important right now when he's pretty low on resources. Every turn that he decides not to call for stone just makes it easier and easier for me to potentially win cancel wars. He can use the Paladin to kill my token, that's fine, and then he swings in for the 11. Now, I get where he's coming from the idea of why don't I just put me on a 4-turn clock, right? But at the same time, with my board empty, but at the same time, Gremia becomes easier for me to cast if my life points are below a certain point. So he wants to be a little bit careful, because if I can stick a Gremia with this many auras in the grave and back it up with protection, he's going to have a very hard time, because I could potentially gain several 4,000 to 5,000 life just in one swing. Gonna play the Lorite during the end of his turn, and then during my turn, pay the 3 life for the reincarnation, and then attempt to play the 7 Disciples. He responds to this Lorite's trigger, 7 Disciples trigger with his own Lorite, and I say, okay, that's fine. I don't really mind not having it at this moment, so I'll just end the turn. I'm going to get more value off of it later. Next turn, if you don't kill it, I'm just going to get another trigger off of it. So if you're going to use this Lorite on a repeatable trigger, I think I'm okay with it. And I attach another Aura to CL, and I say, pass turn. It's going to banish the Black Leaf to produce, then go to his turn. Now, at this point in time, he probably just needs to go ahead and call for stone. Instead, just once again, swings, takes me down to 15. I'm totally fine taking this 11 damage, because once again, next turn I'm going to gain 9. So that Gill swing really did 2 damage to me. And if that's the kind of grind that we're going to be going, my CL is also going to be great, because it's going to be able to get me a lot of will. He says, I'm going to try to Lorite the 7 Disciples trigger again. I say, okay, I'm going to try to think first. I'm like, do I really care about that? Still can swing in for 7. Is that relevant enough? I say, you know what? It is. Let's go ahead and try to use my Aura Cancel spell to stop the Lorite. Paul's going to respond. He says, nope, that's fine. It's going to resolve. I attempt to use the Lorite trigger. He's going to activate Lorite's effect to banish 3 spirit magics to try to bring the Lorite back from his grave and then cast it. I'm going to Severing Winds that second Lorite. Going to Severing Winds my Severing Winds. Going to Severing his Severing. He's going to attempt to Farer's spell my Severing. I'm going to Severing the Farers. And he says, yep, that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to search with Gill. You win this one. The Disciple triggers are going to go off. And that's the Lorite that was here on the previous turn. So made him use a bunch of spells. I still have 3 Will Up and a Severing, I think, in hand. I'm going to swing with 7 Disciples with Flying, Precision, First Strike, and Drain at the Paladin. So I'm going to gain 9, kill the Paladin, get to call a stone, have the Lorite to protect it, and I get to attach my 3rd aura to CL, meaning that next turn CL's able to flip potentially. And at this point, I've made Paul use up a lot of resources before I've even flipped Gill. Or flipped CL. Paul's going to try to cycle some stuff in. I say in response to the search, I'm going to go ahead and Lorite it. You can search, shuffle your cards in, but I'm not going to let you draw another card. And because Lorite doesn't target the creature, it targets the effect. Even if Gill has barrier, it can be Lorited. Now I can't Lorite the banishing for Will, because that doesn't use the chase, but everything else I can cancel. Now we have 2 blockers to be able to deal with my 7 Disciples. Gonna swing in with the Gill. I'm gonna say, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and block with the Lorite. Now, because he doesn't have any Leafs in hand, I think those 5th elements aren't really doing anything for him at this point. So I don't think he can actually stop them. Gain everything with 7 Disciples. Yeah, he doesn't have any elementals in hand at this point, so the 5th elements are 0 damage. So Paul's going to shuffle in 2 in response to me trying to gain everything. Search for a Gentle Breeze elemental. Banish 1 to produce 1, and then cast the 5th element from his hand for the Gentle Breeze elemental that's in his hand. So he can do 3 damage to the Lorite. And then Lorite's Disciples won't gain everything. He's doing this before we even move into recovery, by the way. And so then I'm going to go ahead and pick Drain and swing it, because then the trigger happens, right? And I get to go. He's going to try to miscalculation it. I'm going to cancel the miscalculation with the winds, the wind spell that I can't remember its name that removes it from the chase. And then he's going to decide whether or not he wants to do anything about that. He's going to play a deletion magic, and I'm going to go ahead and Severing it. So that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and now, since I can move to declare blocks, I'll block it with the Lorite. I get to gain 9 life. And then now that he's completely tapped out, and this is kind of why I was doing the thing that I did, can't possibly Lorite me. So I'm going to go ahead and float some Will, flip over CL with 3, recover 3 stones, draw 2 cards, and produce those 2 tokens. And then I'm going to recover with the floating Will that I have. Recover and swing in for another 7 with the Drain. And spend another white, still leaving myself up with 3 stones for a potential cancel spell to recover and swing in for another 7 life. So I go up to 45, and Paul goes down to 2 grand. So at this point, a final battle kills him. So can't possibly clear my board. He's going to attempt to shuffle back in, or attempt to remove 3 cards to try to bring back a Lorite from his grave. I say that's fine. He can do that. I do not mind. And draw. And then Paul makes a little bit of a mistake here, and beginning of his turn, he's going to go try to shuffle, and I'm just going to go ahead and Lorite in response to the shuffle. And at that point, Paul says, yep, you got it. I can't really do anything, so you got the game. There's no way I can recover from that. So huge thanks to Paul for the games. Keep an eye out for the deck lists this weekend. Might be on Friday and Sunday because of the GP, but I'll see you guys for live streaming this weekend. And until next time, this is TMO73 signing off.